Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Friday, July the 14th, 2023. Happy Bastille Day. And because it's Bastille Day, I wanted to look at the horoscope of the French president, Emmanuel Macron. I also wanted to look at the horoscope of his wife, Brigitte Macron. Now, this relationship is perhaps controversial because there is a very large age difference of 24 years. And I believe Emmanuel Macron first met his wife when he was 15 years old and he was attending a drama class or a drama workshop that she was running. So this might immediately make us think about the complete inappropriateness of the thing. A teacher not being respectful of the boundaries between her and her student. Even though the relationship didn't actually start, I believe, until Macron was 18 years old. But maybe she should have been more aware of the problem and made a greater effort to dissuade him from continuing with the relationship. Indeed, she could have refused point blank to continue with it, but she didn't. So when I was considering this video, I was thinking, well, I was just going to say something negative about Macron and his wife. I thought I was going to make the obvious points, impressionable teenager, manipulated by an older woman. Maybe we could find it in the charts, that kind of stuff. But having looked at the charts, I think it's a little more serious than that. I think that in some respects, Macron made a Faustian bargain. That's Emmanuel Macron. He kind of gained the French presidency, but of course he lost a lot else through his relationship with Brigitte. Well, she was Brigitte Trogneau before the marriage. So what do I mean by that? Well, it's really difficult to be French president. Even if you are a French citizen and you're well educated and well connected, there's no guarantee you're going to ever be French president. However hard you try, however much you want to be French president, yet Emmanuel Macron, he became French president at the age of 39. It's almost as if it was destined. And I think that Brigitte Trogneau was an essential part of the process by which he became president. I'm sure that if it wasn't for her, he would never have got to the Élysée Palace. Who knows what the process is? She's an older woman. Having this relationship with the older woman might have given him advantages, made him mature in particular ways that someone having a relationship with a woman his own age group, might have been different. But it must have made a difference because so many random things have to go right if you want to be French president. So, that is, again, the Faustian bargain. In order to be president, he had to have this relationship with Brigitte Trogneau. That was part of it. And by doing that, that enabled him to get to be president. And maybe also that was her destiny as well, to facilitate Emmanuel Macron becoming French president. So, when you're thinking about the real higher echelons of political power, presidents, prime ministers, these kind of things, it's all fated, really, isn't it? The higher you go, the less free will you have. Fate had kind of decided that for one reason or another, Emmanuel Macron had to be president, and yeah, his wife was the instrument of this. Anyway, so let's have a look at Brigitte Macron's horoscope. So here it is. No, that's yeah, that's it. So this is Brigitte Macron's horoscope. You can see that she is a pretty major Aries. She's got the moon in Aries, Venus in Aries, sun in Aries. You know, she was just born just before a new moon. So in many respects, I think she is probably quite an exciting person, and she probably came over as being very exciting when the young Emmanuel Macron attended her drama class, and we can also see some of the sort of confusion there. You know, she has Neptune 22 Libra, opposition Venus. So when Venus is opposition Neptune, you know, it's it can be a bit sort of in the clouds. Perhaps she didn't really quite know what she was doing. She just drifted into this relationship. She didn't really think it through. She just, you know, that's what she wanted to do. Remember, she's an Aries. This is kind of what she wanted. You know, she wasn't going to allow conventions and what was proper, and, you know, it's not really right for a former teacher to have a relationship with a pupil. But no. Aries, this is what Aries wanted to do. And that's the way it is. And in a way, the fact that Emmanuel Macron married a woman who was much older than him is kind of indicated in the older woman's chart. So you can see that Brigitte Macron, there's her sun in Aries. That is an incredibly strong sun. That sun represents the male principle. It represents perhaps the man she's going to have a relationship with. I mean, I believe this is her second marriage. I think she already had been married to someone. I think she was divorced. She had children from this previous marriage. But that sun is really strong because the sun is exalted in Aries. It's a daytime chart. It's above the horizon, and Aries is a masculine planet. So that would be perhaps Emmanuel Macron. Yet this sun is opposition Saturn. So what does that actually mean? Well, it's almost as if we can see Emmanuel Macron in Brigitte Macron's chart, and we can see Brigitte Macron in her own chart, because Brigitte Macron, as an older woman, is for Saturn in Libra. So Saturn in Libra is opposition the sun. So this symbolizes the person that Brigitte Macron is going to have a relationship with, and he is going to be a powerful man in a relationship with a much older woman, Saturn, the much older woman. So I think that's kind of really kind of interesting. Now, another thing about Brigitte Macron's chart, and this relates to what I was talking about, you know, with the Faustian bargain, with the fact that Emmanuel Macron was kind of destined to have this relationship with Brigitte Macron if he wanted to be president of France. This is the woman that facilitated it. And now, if you look at her seventh house cusp represents the other, represents the partner. Now, she's got Pisces on the seventh house cusp. Now, some of you might think, oh, Neptune rules Pisces, but, you know, I am a traditionalist. As far as I'm concerned, Jupiter rules Pisces. And Jupiter, ruler of the seventh house, is right on the 10th house cusp. There is Brigitte Macron's midheaven, 26.5 Taurus. Jupiter's at 24 Taurus. You know, the 10th house is the direction we're going, our career, but it also represents the head of state, the president. And so that indicates, certainly in hindsight, that she marries the President of France with that Jupiter right up there on the midheaven. And it's interesting that I think one of the names given to Emmanuel Macron is Jupiter. Did he even call himself Jupiter? Of course, he's a Sagittarian and Jupiter rules Sagittarius. But yeah, I think that Jupiter on the midheaven is really telling. Now, as far as how Brigitte Macron's horoscope connects with Emmanuel Macron's horoscope, let's set up a bi-wheel. Well, okay, let's first look at Emmanuel Macron's horoscope on its own. So there's Emmanuel Macron's horoscope. I don't want to spend too long on it because I'm really looking at it from a relationship perspective. In a way, you know, Brigitte Macron's horoscope is, well, she's just as interesting, maybe even more interesting than Emmanuel Macron's chart. But you can see that Emmanuel Macron has his Venus at 21 Sagittarius, Sun at 29 Sagittarius, Mercury also at 29 Sagittarius. There's his Saturn at 0 Virgo, more of that later. So that Venus represents the woman. It's a woman he's looking for. It's a woman that's going to make him happy. And so let's compare the two charts. So what we'll do is we'll create a bi-wheel. We will put Emmanuel Macron's chart in the middle. We will put Brigitte Macron's chart outside. Okay, so there we have it. So there is Macron's Sagittarian planets. And there you can see his Venus at 21 Sagittarius. Now, they make a trine aspect to Brigitte Macron's Aries planets. You know, the far signs, Sagittarius, trine, Aries. And it's particularly that Venus. There's Emmanuel's Venus at 2148 Sagittarius is trine all of these planets, 19, Moon at 19 Aries, Venus at 22 Aries, Sun at 23 Aries. So you can imagine 15-year-old Emmanuel goes to the drama class and that trine just kicks off straight away. It's not really compulsive. I would not regard that as a compulsive thing. Normally, one person's planets being trine each other. You know, with compulsive planets, I'd see, you know, a compulsive relationship would be something like, you know, her Venus is conjunct his Mars. Now that could be really compulsive, you know, particularly with the sexuality of a Venus-Mars conjunction. But there's none of that. We don't get that. It's more of a sort of easy flow there. So I'm not really convinced about the compulsiveness. But I suppose from his perspective, you could argue, you know, it's like young birds imprinting on their mother, isn't that right? So the first time he meets someone who he finds super attractive, it's like an imprint, and you know the trine kicks off, and it just doesn't stop. Now that's really the major synastry. So I'm not, by synastry, that's syn astro, the way the one person's planets interact with the other person's planets. So you know that's the main thing. You know, we could spot some other things maybe. You know, there is Macron's Mars square Uranus. It's quite a tumultuous aspect, that Mars square Uranus. You know. I mean, looking at the riots over the last few days in France, you know, maybe having a president with Mars square Uranus, and he's, you know, this isn't his first set of riots. He's already had the yellow vest, and he's going to be president for another, well, until 2027. So there's going to be a lot more Mars-Uranus events, I think. But her south node is aspected by his Mars, and Uranus is square it. So it may be that you could argue that her south node is where she should be going away from. It's her line of least resistance. And so Emmanuel turns up and she can't help herself. She just goes. His Mars is just too exciting for her, and she just goes for it. What else? Yeah, there's his Saturn and her ascendant. So with the Saturn ascendant link, normally you think in synastry that Saturn and an ascendant is not a particularly good aspect, but Saturn can provide stability, and so Brigitte with her Virgo rising, she's looking for stability, and his Saturn kind of stabilizes her. But at least that's how it seems to how it's probably worked. So those are the main things I've noticed. I'm sure there are other things that maybe you've noticed. As but I haven't. You can put them in the comments. Now I want to look at the composite chart. So composite charts are something that astrologers really do a lot with this kind of relationship astrology. I'm not actually a big fan of composite charts. I should say that, but I think anyone looking at this video who's into astrology will expect me to look at the composite charts. So what a composite chart is a chart of the midpoints of the two charts. So for example, if you want to work out the composite sun, you take the composite sun of one person, take the composite sun of the other person, and you work out the midpoint. So if person A has got their sun at 0 Aries, person B has got their sun at 0 Taurus, the composite sun will be halfway between the 2 points at 15 Aries. So you build up all the planets, you work out the midpoints, you also work out the composite midheaven. So that means you take the midheaven of one person, midheaven of the other person, then you find the midpoint between the two midheavens, and then you use that midpoint to work out the composite ascendant using a table of houses. I won't bore you on the details of what a table of houses is. Maybe you already know, but they were basically used to calculate charts before the age of the computer. So let's look at the composite chart of Brigitte and Emmanuel. So here. Whoops. Right, so this is it. So we can see that this chart has got Mars on the ascendant, and it's got Venus trine Mars. That's good. Venus is a planet of female sexuality. Mars is a planet of male sexuality. Venus is in Aquarius. Mars is in Gemini. That's good. They're in trine. That might indicate a certain harmony in the relationship. But it's not a big deal. I mean, it's quite a wide trine. It's not really anything to write home about. Notice the sun is on the midheaven. This maybe suggests that the relationship is about the direction they are moving in. The idea that perhaps this relationship is all about getting Emmanuel into the Élysée Palace, getting him elected as president. Maybe, that's not perhaps the original intention, but maybe that's what it's all about in a sort of wider collective destiny kind of way. But the sun is weak in Aquarius. It's the sun rules Leo, but in Aquarius, it's in its detriment. And this is why I'm inclined to think that if one is interested in composite charts, maybe one should use a different type of composite. And I'm thinking particularly of the Davison time-space composite. So the way the Davison time-space composite works is you don't take the midpoint of the individual planets. You take the midpoint of the two dates of birth. So if one person is born on the 1st of January 1960, the other person is born on the 1st of January 1961, you take the halfway point exact to the second, which would, so for example, July the 1st, 1960, you take that in time, the halfway point. Then you take the halfway point in longitude and the halfway point in latitude. So, for example, if one person's born in New York on, say, January the 1st, 1960, and the other person is born in London on January the 1st, 1961, you take the halfway point, July the 1st, 1960, but you'd also do it geographically. So you'd actually set the chart for the middle of the North Atlantic, because that's halfway between London and New York. So I've done the Davison chart for Emmanuel and Brigitte, but they're both born in Amiens, which I think is a town in northwest France. So this is what the Davison chart looks like, and I think it's a much more interesting chart. We can see that you've got Sun on the midheaven again, but this time it's not in Aquarius, it's in Leo, and you've got Mercury there. This really is a chart about power, about having maximum influence on society. And that Mercury is about the way you communicate, and we mustn't forget that Emmanuel Macron's wife, she was a major power behind the throne, and she played a big role in his election to be president. As a drama teacher, I believe she gave him a lot of coaching in public speaking, and she helped him get his campaign together. So that's a Mercury on the midheaven, and then Sun in Leo on the midheaven. Perfect. This is what it's all about. Then you can see the Moon in Aries is trine the Sun and Mercury on the midheaven. So that is really beautiful. This composite chart, it's not just about love and romance. It's not really what this chart is about. Maybe they have a loving romantic relationship, but really it's a power relationship. And this comes back to my point. It's Emmanuel Macron, when he married his wife, 24 years his senior, it was a Faustian bargain. He was going to have to give up a lot, but it was a marriage that gave him the prize of the presidency. And with Brigitte Macron, it was her destiny to marry someone who would eventually become president of France. So that's all I'm going to say for today. I hope you found it interesting, and I will talk to you again very soon.